We'll start off with a bang, yeah. Okay. Good afternoon and welcome, and thank you for being here today as we celebrate the life of Sarah Darlington Weidler. I'm Elizabeth Dunn, a longtime friend and former neighbor of Sally's. I'd like to begin by thanking Jeremiah Smith, the pastor of this church, Jameson Lenz, who's up there streaming our event via YouTube, Charlie Russ, the church caretaker who handed you your program and your required song sheet, and Elaine Fantini for helping bring this beautiful gathering together. As you look through today's program, you'll notice that every detail was chosen with intention. And in planning this celebration of Sally's life, one question guided us. What did Sally love? What mattered most to her? From the colors of the program, official Penn State colors. Fun fact, there are 3 blue official colors of Penn State. I used them all in my outfit as well. To the photo of Sally and her beloved cat, Toots, taken by Terry Murphy. Our opening music may sound like something from the Gilded Age, but it was chosen by friends who will share what it meant to Sally when they speak. To the readings inspired by Sally's chalkboard, filled with the quotes she lived by, and lovingly displayed in her kitchen. That is on the back of your program. Even today, Sally is teaching us about participation, about teamwork, and about showing up for one another. Please join us after for a bite. Books, lots of books, which you will get to choose. And what I'm sure will be great Sally stories that we may not be able to tell in this sanctuary, but we can tell them at the reception. I also want to thank those who helped write Sally's obituary: Molly, Sarah, Ellen, Jane, and Jody. Thank you. I'd now like to invite Elaine Fantini, Sally's friend, colleague, and member of the Parkside congregation to speak. Elaine? Be careful of this stuff. Do you want it? She's taller than me. Okay.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Elaine Fantini. On behalf of Pastor Jeremiah Smith, I'd like to welcome you to Parkside Lutheran Church for the celebration of life for Sarah Darlington Weidler. I've known our Gail Sale, for over 25 years. She was my principal, but more importantly, she was my friend. I keep coming back to one thing when I think about Sally, and that was how truly generous she was. And not just with things, but with who she was. Her time, her kindness, her heart. Sal gave it so freely. And I know I'm not the only one here who felt like that. Sally had a way of making you feel seen, supported, and cared for, even on your hardest days. It's difficult to imagine this world without her in it. But I do know this. The way she loved and gave doesn't just disappear. It stays with us in the way we treat each other, in the ways we show up. I'm so grateful I got to call Sally my friend, and I'll carry that with me always. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. I'm just going to use my Jen voice right now. Going up back and forth. So the song that was chosen by Sally's friends is from Girl Scout Camp and was one of Sally's favorites. Again, as I said before, it's required that you do your best to sing along. And so that's on the back side of the readings.
Peace, I ask of thee, O river. Peace, peace, peace. When I learn to live serenely, cares will cease. From the hills I gather courage, vision of the day to be, strength to lead and faith to follow. All are given unto me. Peace I ask of thee, O river. Peace, peace, peace. Peace I ask of thee, O river. Peace, peace, peace.
Thank you. I had this teacher thing in the nice job. Next is again from Sally's chalkboard. So this was at the top of Sally's list, her chalkboard. I'd like to invite Kathy Brockman, a friend and colleague from Lancaster Schools and Buffalo State College University.
Expect nothing. Live frugally, on surprise. Become a stranger to need of pity, or if compassion be freely given out, take only enough. Stop short of urge to plead, then purge away the need. Wish for nothing larger than your own small heart, or greater than a star. Tame wild disappointment with caress, unmoved and cold. Make of it a Parker for your soul. Discover the reason why so tiny human midget exists at all, so scared, unwise. But expect nothing, live frugally, on surprise.
It's nice to see everyone here celebrating Sally today. My name is Sarah Aquinas, and I was her cousin. I am her cousin. Sorry. I did not grow up near Sally, but in the mid-'80s, my job moved me from out west to the East Coast, not far from where her mother Catherine was in Towson, Maryland. I would visit Aunt Catherine regularly, and Sally would be there too at times. Over time, it became very clear to me that Sally, such a devoted daughter, was truly the rock of her family. She made it her mission to care for her mom in the most loving and selfless way. She moved her here, near Buffalo, so she could tend to her every need while working full-time. She was a calm, steady presence, always providing comfort, security, and love. And that kind of devotion is something I will always admire. There's so many things I remember about Sally, but 3 memories kind of make me smile a little more. First was her love of coffee. When visiting Sally, the mornings were a ritual. Oh, she would carefully go through the process and make the perfect cup. One year, I sent her a pound of coffee from a local roaster near me, and she called me and said, "This is the coffee I've been looking for my whole life." So that made me smile. The second was her love of food and bringing people together. Every year, Sally hosted a special meal in honor of her mother, Catherine. We would always come. And it wasn't just a dinner, it was an experience filled with warmth and care and joy. And you could see how proud Aunt Catherine was and how much it meant to both of them and all of us who were present to share it with them. Special time. And the third was her love of Rehoboth Beach, which was a place full of family history. Sally carried that tradition forward, returning year after year, bringing her mom, even when Catherine couldn't fully get up onto the beach. She would take her so she could still experience it. The smell of the ocean, the sound of the waves, the feeling of being somewhere so meaningful. And that's who Sally was, someone who understood what it truly mattered, and she always made it possible for others to feel it too. She lived a life of quiet strength, generosity, and care. She showed us what it means to truly show up for the people you love. And while we feel her loss deeply, she's still with us. I feel so grateful for the moments that I had with her, and I'll carry it always. So when you make a great cup of coffee, when you gather around a table with friends and people you love, or if you stand near the ocean and just take it all in, think of Sally and smile, because she will always be loved and remembered.
Hello, it's really good to see you all. My name is Jane Darlington Todd. We have that in common, as do a few others, right? And I am one of Sally's first cousins. I think she had 14 or 15 first cousins. And it occurred to me that most of you probably got to know Sally when she was an adult, right? A young adult or middle or, a teacher when she was in her career. So I just wanted to share a few memories that I have as a child and playing together. My mother, Mary, and her mother, Catherine, were sisters in a household of 5 children with three boys, so it was a very lively family. And my mother and Catherine were close in age, as well as like being the 2 sisters that pulled together. And after they went to Westchester University together, State Teachers College then, both became teachers, both started families and lived pretty close to each other, lived in Pennsylvania, at least the same state, so that during the summer they made sure that the families got together and the cousins got to know each other. And I would go and stay with Sally and her family, or, we would all meet up at our grandparents' house, our grandmother and grandfather Vernon, who were at that point in Camp Hill. I remember loving and having the summers be very magical for me. Once I got over being homesick, we would have a blast. They had a lovely house for a number of years in Blue Ridge Summit in Pennsylvania, which is right on the border of PA and Maryland. And it was wonderful. It was perfectly situated. It had a big stone wall out front near the road. And in the back of the house were woods that went on forever. And we were outside from morning until night when we had to come in. And we shared a love of things, a love of reading, a love of horses, a love of being outside and being active and climbing trees and singing and telling stories to each other at night. And was she bossy? Yes. She was my cousin who was older. She was 2 years older, and I looked up to her. And she, even then, taught me things, right? She taught me how to duel like a pirate. She taught me how to climb up on that big stone wall and stand on top and play pirates. She taught me later on, different lyrics to some of the Girl Scout songs that you wouldn't find in the books. She would teach me these long, winding jokes, with crazy punchlines. She tried to teach me to sing like Barbra Streisand and Judy Garland, who were her favorites. And she would always say, "No, Jane, you can't slide up to that note. You've got to hit that note." Even then, right? We loved to harmonize together. We lost touch. We went to went to college, did our careers, did our families, and we didn't see each other nearly as much, so I'm eager to hear about her middle years from you all. But we reconnected after a while, and it was Rehoboth Beach that brought us together again. And I would join Sally and Catherine for a week in Rehoboth Beach. And again, the rituals with the coffee, with the scrapple in the morning, right, with eating at Victoria's on the boardwalk, with her ordering oysters, right, always, and clams on the, she did clams for all of us, like when we ate in the apartment. But she was a wonderful, loving, felt like a sister to me. I never had a sister, and she was my sister. And she said to me once a while ago, "Oh, do stay in touch and make sure my mom gets to know your children and your grandchildren, because I'm not going to have any grandchildren," she said. So we kind of did that. And then Sally got to know my grandchildren and would send them cards and ask about them and ask about my boys, and was concerned about some of the strangest things. Maybe my son lives in Charleston, and they had a hurricane, so they had to evacuate, and they had chickens. And Sally texted me and said, "Jane, I'm worried about those chickens." I'm sure that Andrew's not going to take them with him, so what are they doing about the chickens? She had a heart as big as a barn, and such a loving person, and I'll miss her forever. But you know what? We're cousins, but you're family too. She loved you like family. You were her family too. Thank you. Oh, okay. We're going to sing now Dona Nobis Pacem, which my mother and Sally's mother taught us as children, and we would sing it as a round. And then later on, who knew, it was a Girl Scout song. And so it meant a lot to us. Thank you for telling me.
Dona nobis pacem pacem, Dona nobis pacem, Dona nobis pacem, Dona nobis
Welcome Dallas Dax, a friend from the farmhouse in State College, PA, for another one of Sally's top readings.
Hello, I'm very happy to be able to read this in Sally's honor. It's a poem by Emily Dickinson. I dwell in possibility, a fairer house than prose, more numerous of windows, superior for doors, of chambers as the cedars, impregnable of eye, and for an everlasting roof, the gambrels of the sky. Of visitors, the fairest, for occupation this, the spreading wide my narrow hands to gather paradise.
I met Sally in 1971. We were both hired to be camp counselors at Girl Scout Camp Lycurgus. I was 17 years old. I was still a kid. We did a lot of fun things. We took the girls backpacking. We built tree houses lashed together with twine. And we had a lot of fun. It was one of Sally's early opportunities to really influence young people, young girls. During the breaks between sessions when kids would go home and new kids wouldn't come to the next day, we would often go into town and, do some specialty store shopping, maybe go to a bookstore, maybe some other specialty stores. We would do laundry. We'd get back from our trip to town, and Sally would be carrying our laundry bags, and Sally's would be going clink, clink, clink. Wonder what was in there. And in the evenings, sometimes Sally would host a little cocktail party. We had a little staff lounge, a very little staff lounge. There was a little record player in there. There was always music around with Sally. So at that time, it would be James Taylor and Carole King and, Simon and Garfunkel. James Taylor, Carole King. You've Got a Friend. Paul Simon. Isn't it strange to be 70? So I started at 17 and now past 70. Moving on from that era, from the early 70s, Sally was working on her PhD at Penn State. I was working on my master's. We had an opportunity to rent what has now become the famous farmhouse. It was owned by two older brothers. We weren't sure that they were going to rent to two young women, so we strategized. And Sally dressed up very professionally with a very, very nice blazer and very nice. And I wore a pair of clean but not new Carhartt overalls. And it worked. And we got the farmhouse where many of us stayed for a long time. There were a lot of interesting parties at the farmhouse. It became a community center for PLUs, people like us. So there were some wild parties, and I don't know how good the lightning rods are in the church, so I'm gonna spare you the details on some of those parties. But it was a great fun. What I remember from one of my favorite memories of Sally, I used to run. I know I don't look like I ran any further than the couch to the refrigerator, but I used to run. And so after these wild parties on a Saturday night, I'd go for a run, come back in, and I have a very clear memory of Sally sitting in front of the window in the living room, the light pouring in, and she's doing the New York Times crossword puzzle. And she has a pen in one hand, because doesn't everybody do the New York Times crossword puzzle in ink? Sally would. And she has a Bloody Mary in the other hand with a celery stick in it. And the disco music from the night before is gone, and there's classical music on. And the piece I clearly remember was the Moldau, which was the piece that was playing when you came into the sanctuary. And that's my memory of Sally.
Okay, well, Karen met Sally in 1971, and I met her in 1972 at Camp Lycurgus, and I had arrived there. I had never been to the camp before. I knew one other person, And I walked into the dining hall, and Sally was there, and I think she had her green army jacket on. And she asked me what my name was, and I said it was Sarah. And she said, "My name is Sarah too." Like, just an absolute delight that we had the same name. And I'm thinking, oh, great, I made a friend already. And then she told me she wasn't actually working there that summer, that she was just visiting for the day, and I wouldn't see her again after that day. But I did see her again. We worked together at camp for the next 3 years, and then in life, she moved to State College, which is where I'm from, to work on her master's at Penn State, and we continued seeing one another, doing things together, camping, canoeing. She came on canoe trips with my partner Ellen and I a couple of times. It was just the three of us. And there's stories about that I can't tell in the church too. But she ended up becoming a really good friend, and we lived together a couple of different times, once in Columbus, and I was part of the original farmhouse crew for winter. By the time she had come back to Penn State to do her doctorate, and at the end of that, her first job was at Kutztown University, which is in Berks County in Pennsylvania, and Ellen and I were living near there, so Sally moved to Reading, and we thought, this is great. She's, a couple of blocks away from us. We saw her a lot of dinners together, and that position turned out, it was temporary, and then she told us she was moving to Buffalo, and I was like, oh, you can't move to Buffalo. How are we, we knew it wasn't going to be the same after that. We weren't going to see her as much, but we did see her every year, usually around Rehoboth, the Rehoboth trip. Sometimes we would go at the end of the week and stay with Catherine, let Ellen and I sleep on the sleeper sofa in the living room of the small apartment, but we would stay the end of the week with her, and then sometimes we would extend the trip beyond their week at Rehoboth, and then Catherine and Sally would, on their way back to Buffalo from Rehoboth, would stop at our house in Camp Hill, since Catherine had partly grown up there. And that was nice. We really got to know Catherine well. And then later, Jane and Kevin were at the beach with us when we were down there too. So we did get to see her, but it wasn't, as often as it had been. But a couple of things I learned from Sally. Some have already been mentioned, but one is the importance of a good cup of coffee. She was the first person I knew who dripped. She had a Chemex, one of those Chemex carafes, and dripped coffee in that way. She was ordering her coffee at that time from Gavalia Coffee. And we talked at one point about when she was living in Reading where Ellen and I were, of opening, she wanted to open a coffee shop and call it the Ultimate Cup. But that didn't happen. So the second thing was the art of fine dining. I grew up in a family of 5 kids when my dad was a college professor. We never ate out. And Sally really is the one who introduced me to enjoying a really good meal and spending a lot of money sometimes, but that was something else. The third thing is where to set up your umbrella at Rehoboth Beach, because they always stayed at the end of Virginia Avenue, and if you're looking at the beach, to the left is a jetty, and if you put your umbrella there, the families with lots of noisy kids aren't so much there because they can't swim there, and it tends to be a quieter spot on the beach. That I probably learned from Catherine, and then passed to Sally, passed to me. And then the last thing I learned from her is how to watch Penn State football, and that involves a lot of loud yelling and swearing at the TV. And I'm not really a big football fan, but I do watch Penn State football, and I can't watch a game without hearing her there with me, which is a good thing. So there's a group of us here from Pennsylvania, half from camp, half from the farmhouse. Some haven't seen Sally in a lot of years, but she was a really important person to all of us. And we wanted to be here. So, oh wait, I forgot one other thing. I brought a visual aid that I'll put downstairs. I don't know how many of you knew that Sally was actually a pretty good artist, and this is a painting she did of my dog Molly. So I almost forgot about this, and last week I remembered it, but she did a painting of muskox in the snow, and I remember Karen saying, it's such a common sight outside the farmhouse, you know, to see muskox. But anyhow, she was truly a wonderful person. And the next song we're going to do is the Ash Grove, and that's another song from camp.
Down yonder green valley where streamlets meander, when twilight is fading, I pensively rove, or at the bright noontide in solitude wander, amid the dark shades of the lonely ash grove. 'Tis there where the blackbird is cheerfully singing, each warbler enchants with his notes from the tree. Then led to think I of sorrow or sadness, the ash grove entrancing spells beauty for me. The ash grove, how graceful, how plainly 'tis speaking. The harp through its playing has language for me. Whenever the light through its branches is breaking, a host of kind faces is gazing at me. The friends of my childhood again are before me. Each step wakes a memory as freely I roam. With soft whispers laden, its leaves rustle o'er me. The ash grove alone is my home.
Our next reading is being read by Amy Levin, a friend from the farmhouse in State House, PA. Amy?
Thank you. Okay. Can you hear me? Can you see me? All right. I'm Amy Levin. I'm so happy to see everyone out here. I have the last quote from Sally's chalkboard, and this one's by Gertrude Stein. There ain't no answer. There ain't gonna be any answer. There never has been an answer. There's your answer. So when I first read the quote, I felt that it was a little harsh. But the more I thought about it, the more it felt honest in a way we don't always allow ourselves to be, especially in moments like this. When we lose someone we love, our first reaction is to search for answers. Why them? Why now? Why this way? And the truth is, the answers to these questions can't be neatly wrapped up in a bow. I was so privileged to know Sally in a way that gave me something better than answers. I lived with Sal in the infamous State College farmhouse, one of those places that always felt warm and certainly full of life. She had a gift of friendship. We've heard a lot about that. for making people feel welcome, for turning ordinary moments into ones you didn't want to end. Coffee. I was the youngest at the farmhouse with lots to learn, and Sally taught me things that might sound small, but weren't. She taught me that a Manhattan should always be served in a proper glass. It wasn't so much about the glassware, more about how to slow down and enjoy something done right. She also shared her love of music, the kind that fills a room and somehow brings people closer together. And most importantly, she showed me what good friends look like, how to welcome people in, how to make space for laughter, stories, and connections. All of you being here is an amazing tribute to Sally. So maybe there aren't answers, back to Gertrude, for why we lose someone like Sally, but there are things she gave us. And for me, that's the sound of music playing in a warm room, a well-made drink in hand, and the feeling of being surrounded by lifelong friends. That's where I'll always find Sally. And maybe, in its own way, that's the answer. Thank you.
Next we have Sally's good friend, Molly Marcinelli, a friend and colleague from Lancaster Schools. Molly.
Hi, everyone. I'm Molly Marcinelli. Sally Weidler was really special. I knew her as a colleague, a mentor, a boss, and most importantly, she was my friend. I met her when she was supervising pre-service teachers at Como Park. She brought her college students into our classrooms to learn from the amazing educators that worked there. I know that her students learned a lot from us and from her, but what I hadn't anticipated is how much we would learn from her. In her instruction of her students, she brought new strategies to light to all of us who worked at Como Park. I learned about predictograms, thinking boxes, grand conversations, and so many other strategies that made me a better teacher. It started there, but it didn't end there. Sally was a teacher of teachers. That was her superpower. She influenced countless educators through her work at Buffalo State, in the Lancaster schools as Como Park principal and director of elementary education, and then back again to Buffalo State to supervise student teachers. If you think about her impact, it was and still is enormous, because for every teacher that she made a better teacher, the students that were in that teacher's care ultimately were the ones that benefited the most. After Sally retired from Lancaster, we remained very close friends. Kathy Brockman and I had dinner with her every couple of months until she left us. I treasured those evenings. It started the same way every time. Kathy and I ordered our Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc, and then waited for Sally to tell the waitress for her very, very specific martini order. I always said to the waitress, wait for it, wait for it. And after several minutes, she had completed her drink order. I never heard anything so complicated. Kathy and I loved it. We looked forward to the drink order, And then the wonderful conversations about education, books, our families, and our lives. I was blessed to have Sally as my friend. In addition to being remembered as a teacher of teachers, Sally will be remembered for her gifted storytelling ability. When she told you a story, she had everyone salivating, waiting for the next line. A couple of Lancaster colleagues, John Armstrong and Mike Vallely, remember fondly the night that Sally told the story of the Golden Nugget. John shared the story with me. Thank you, John. John is here. John, wave your hand. John shared the story, and I'm going to share it with you now. I think you'll enjoy it as much as I did. One evening, a number of us from the administrative team went out to dinner at a local restaurant. It was one of those relaxed evenings where the food was good, the conversation kept going, and after a couple of drinks, the stories started to come out. And if you ever sat around a dinner table with Sally, you know how that usually turned out. At some point, the conversation turned to travel, and Sally began telling us about a trip she took years ago when she was younger. I think it might have been right after she finished her doctorate, though the exact timing wasn't really the important part of the story. What mattered most was that Sally had decided she was going to drive across the United States by herself. So she set off in a gold-colored Dodge Colt and headed west. Now, this was back when CB radios were everywhere. Okay, wait for it. Truck drivers had them, travelers had them, and apparently Sally had one too. She always had to have the latest technology. As she told the story, she started reenacting what it was like driving across the country and talking to the truckers over the CB radio. And suddenly, Sally shifted into this perfect CB radio voice. She leaned forward a little, you could just see her looking like this, and said something like, "Breaker 19, breaker 19, anybody got their ears on? This is the golden traveler looking for a little highway information. And anybody know where Smokey is?" By this point, we were already laughing, just imagining Sally out there on the open highway in that little golden Dodge Colt, chatting with truckers all across America. Then someone at the table asked the obvious question. They said, "Sally, what was your CB handle?" And Sally paused for just a moment, just long enough to set up the punchline. And with that wonderfully dry delivery she said, "The Golden Nugget." She explained that one of the truckers had given her the name because of that golden Dodge Colt she was driving. And when she said it, we absolutely lost it. The whole table was laughing. But the truth is, it fit her perfectly. That story stuck with me because it captured something about Sally. She had a sense of adventure, a sense of humor, and a way of telling a story that made everyone feel like they were right there with her. You could almost see it, Sally rolling down the highway, CB radio crackling, talking to truckers across America as the Golden Nugget. And if you knew Sally, you knew she had a way of leaving people smiling, whether it was through a story, a perfectly timed comment, or just the joy that she brought to the room. She was truly one of a kind, and we were lucky to know her. Whenever I see a truck on the highway now, I can't help but think somewhere out there on Channel 19, the Golden Nugget is still rolling down the road. And I'm going to call up Elizabeth and Jody. They're going to close this wonderful celebration, and I just have to say that you planned the most perfect celebration of her life. It was wonderful hearing all of those stories of when she was younger, before I knew her, and seeing all of these wonderful people capture the essence of Sally. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I'm Elizabeth. This is my wife, Jody. And we met Sally in the early 1990s and became friends almost instantly. She was so smart, so funny, so thoughtful, and an absolutely wonderful storyteller. And oh, the stories. Salsters. That's our nickname for Sally, is Salsters. Stories of camp, Penn State, the farmhouse, Buffalo State, Como Park, elementary, Lancaster schools, mother. And just today, Jody and I are meeting many of those stories, people for the first time. Sometimes we'd be out for dinner or somewhere and we felt like little kids. Tell that story again. It's quite the theme we're having today. Tell that story again, Sally. Even though we heard it 100 times, we'd laugh like it was the first. Other stories we may tell you later. Jody's going to share some stories downstairs. Over the years, we shared so many interests, so many conversations, and so much laughter. Time with Sally was always treasured. There were birthday dinners, Sally's, her mother Catherine's, Jody's, and mine, Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve traditions at Hutch's, Sienna, and Left Bank, Friday nights at the place, exchanging gifts. Sally had a passion for life, for a fine meal, a great cocktail, a nice bottle of red wine, and oysters on the half shell. Don't bring that oyster stand. The high stand, she hated it. And a Sally Manhattan or martini. Watching her order one was a performance in itself. We getting the repeat here? Mm-hmm. Our conversations could go anywhere, as divergent as horror movies or books, to politics. Though that's not the best example of divergent these days. We shared wonderful trips, time in Rehoboth Beach, Sanibel Island, visits to Fredonia Place where her mom was, and moments we will never forget, like running through the streets of Rehoboth in a sudden downpour, laughing the entire way. Jody's plane trip to Sanibel. Thank you. We shared the love of the ocean. Sally loved reading on the beach, the kites, the boardwalk, and we loved the Dolly's taffy she brought back to us. And poker night. Her poker chits, not chips. Cigars. She loved Christmas, decorating her tree with jazz or the Charlie Brown Christmas album playing in the background. And she always shared her photos of her beautiful, real tree. The time we went out to Adams Nursery to select, tie it on the VW Golf, and make it back to her place. Sally was picky. Her yearly Christmas gift from Williams-Sonoma arriving each holiday season. Sally loved her traditions and routines. If you knew Sally, you know. Bills football and, of course, Penn State football. The Nittany Lions were a special bond for us, as both my sister and brother studied for their PhDs during the same years as Sally. Sally was a proud graduate and devoted superfan. We even shared a love of professional golf. Last year, I was sitting at a bar in Provincetown, texting back and forth with Sally. As one of her favorites, Rory McIlroy, won the Masters. I just wish she could have seen him repeat this year. Sally's interests were wide-ranging and deeply felt. There was teacher talk, as Jody calls it, because Sally was a passionate educator, a leader, and a literacy expert. And I'm a teacher and a union president, so we had interesting conversations. There was Apple talk. I worked for Apple for 25 years as a side job, and my unofficial role as her tech support and provider of all things Apple. There was movie or TV talk. Always something new, always something unexpected. She loved films, from The Bishop's Wife to I, Madman, a range that says everything about her curiosity and her eclectic taste. I'm so glad you're here. She could discuss classic literature or PBS one moment and insist we watch the John Wick movies the next. You know, the ones with Keanu Reeves? She spent a half an hour telling us about these movies our last Christmas Eve. And always books, so many books, across every genre you can imagine. Avid reader. And speaking of avid reader, Sally loved cars. She really loved cars. We always got the full tour when she purchased a new model. Every single thing, even the glove compartment. She loved music, both classical and jazz, always playing at her home. And she dearly loved her cats, Toots, Pumpkin, Mooch, Sister, Oliver, Betty, and Mame, and probably a few I've missed. She cared for them with such devotion. Thank you to Kaylee Martin. Where's Kaylee? Is Kaylee here? Thank you to Kaylee Martin for helping Betty and Mame find a home together. Those are Sally's last two cats. She loved the comic strip Mutts. Who texts with Sally? Raise your hand. Did you get a Mutts comic? Okay. I think Sally texted me every character pose in that strip at one time or another. Earl the dog and Mooch the cat. Since we're dog people, she did Earl quite a bit. But most of all, Sally loved her mother, Catherine. She was a devoted caregiver and made sure her mother was part of everything. Celebrating Mother's 90th and 95th birthday at Russell's Steakhouse was a highlight for Sally, for Catherine, her cousins, neighbors, and all of us. Sally loved her home. Sally loved her neighborhood. She loved her people, her students, her teachers, her friends. And there is so much more we loved about her and with her. We miss her terribly. So, Salesters, from my Irish chalkboard to you, may the rose rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. The rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. And here's my better half.
Good afternoon. Originally, I was just going to be the page holder and not going to speak, just because I didn't think that I could keep it together, but I think I can. Like Sally, I took care of my mother for the last 2 years of her life, and that's something that brought Sally and I close together, is that we could talk a lot about caring for our mothers and how wonderful it was, how challenging it was, how difficult it was. And my mother recently passed away in January. And Sally actually passed away prior to my mother, which was unexpected. But I do remember Sally saying to me, there's a special place in heaven for someone like you. And I feel the same way for her. for all the care that she gave to her mother. And then I was just inspired by some of what people have said regarding Sally, because when they had their teacher talk, I worked for Starbucks for 10 years, and I was able to intervene and talk coffee. And that kind of kept things going for me. And Christmas was great when I worked at Starbucks, because I got a 30% discount, so Sally would get 30% more coffee. And she had quite the palate for coffee. We had a lot of dark roasts that didn't always go over well with people in Buffalo that like their Tim Hortons, but we had Komodo Dragon, one of her favorites, Sumatra, and French roast, which most people that worked at Starbucks did not really like, but Sally loved it. It had this smoky, dark, bold flavor to it. And I will tell a couple of these stories because I do think they're appropriate, especially the ordering. I know I like to watch Sally not only order for herself, but she would order for her mother in the restaurants, and she would just look the server just square in the eye the entire time she ordered, and she'd be like, "Mother will have the pizza, and Mother will have a warm-up of her coffee." Just like this was their mother. It was wonderful. But I do specifically remember a time when she ordered one of her martinis, and she went through phases, and this was a phase that she had a Tanqueray martini, had to be Tanqueray. She ordered it, and this was at Left Bank, and she ordered it, "I want it shaken till it's nice and cold. And then, when it's nice and cold, I would like a nice green olive." And I think she had this server so nervous. When she brought the drink, it had sliced green olives in it. Sliced. Instead of a nice green olive, it had sliced green olives. It was so funny. Another story that we can never forget. And again, with the oysters, she'd be like, "I want the oysters, I want them on the traditional plate." This was at Hutch's, with the lemon and the Tabasco sauce. "Don't bring the thing. I don't want the thing," the big thing they put the oysters on and everything like that. And when someone mentioned Sally's voice and the one-word thing, I immediately thought, because we had our catchphrase, because we would go to Hutch's once or twice a year after we saved up all our money. And all Sally had to say was, "Cookie cup." That was our Hutch's dessert. We'd all share the cookie cup. And then this story I'll never forget because it was so long ago, but it just resonates with me. And this was probably a few years into when I first met Sally, and Sally was with Terry at the time. And I decided to go with them to Sanibel Island with Sally, just Sally. Elizabeth stayed home, and she was working like she always does. And I remember sitting, I didn't fly much, I was pretty terrified, but I remember sitting, waiting to board the plane, and Sally said, "I want you to know that every time I take a flight, there's a kid that sits next to me. I'm just going to tell you right now, anytime I'm on a flight, there's a baby, either in front or behind me." I'm like, okay. Well, we get on the plane, we're taking off in a thunderstorm, I'm terrified. Sure enough, there's a baby behind us, and this baby was so loud, and Sally said, "No one is ever going to believe this. No one is ever going to believe this." And she had one of those little digital recorders, not even a phone.
It was way before.
And she taped this plane ride with this baby. And the baby started out like, "Go, go, go," and then all of a sudden we would be like, "Ah! Ah!" And then all of a sudden the baby would stop and be like, "Ah!" So when we got to Sanibel Island, we had this recorder, and when we told the story, we would play the recorder of this baby. And I have never seen her laugh. I don't think she's ever laughed so hard. Every time we played the recording of this baby, it was unbelievable, but she just would cry laughing. And then the last thing I just want to mention is when we used to go to the place, it was one of our stomping grounds way back. And Sally and Elizabeth and I, they had their regulars, and they had one of their regulars, a guy named Bob, who would just sit at the end of the bar, would not say anything, would just sit there. He's a little rough around the edges and just very much contemplating life. I don't know, but Sally went up to get us a couple drinks, and of course she had a conversation with this gentleman for a while, and then she came back, and I said, "Oh, wow." She goes, "Oh, that's Bob. He says I have the chi." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." He says I have the chi, and I'm like, "All right, that's awesome." So that became like our new catchphrase for people that we liked or people that we would be looking forward to spending time with. We'd be like, "Oh yeah, they have the chi." But Sally had to go, "The chi." I got the chi with the eyes and the hands. And, I never question it. And then last night, I'm like, I'm going to look up the chi. What is chi? What is it? And I looked it up, and it really resonated with me and with Sally. The chi, from Google, balanced, free-flowing, vital life force. Calmness, balance, meditation. And I was like, Sally's got the chi. So I think that moving forward, I think we should all work on the chi in our life. And Salsters, I'm Jodesters, I didn't mention that. That's Sally's nickname for me. I will miss her so much, and thank you all for being here.
So I saved the shortest quote from her chalkboard for myself, because it's short. Smoke, drink, and never think. And on Sally's chalkboard, she has smoke, drink, don't think. Yaya Sisters. From the Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood. And so, again, I did some research on that, and it actually originated in the song Sophisticated Lady. So we can walk out with that. But first, your assignment is, after we leave, to make sure that you head downstairs, and there'll be many books there from the library of Dr. Sally Darlington Weidler. There is a photo tribute. There's food there, desserts, and we read to know we are alive from C.S. Lewis. So thank you again to Pastor Jeremiah Smith, Jameson, Charlie, and the Parkside Lutheran Church. Thank you so much for coming. I'll start our music. Before we go, would anyone like to speak here in the sanctuary, or are you holding out to downstairs? Would anyone like to speak? Come and speak about Salem. Holding out to downstairs?
They say into your early life romance came, and in this heart of yours burned a flame that flickered one day and died away. with disillusion deep in your eyes. You learn that fools in love soon grow wise. The years have changed you somehow. I see you now.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun up in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, a new day, a new life just for me. And I'm feeling good. It's